You're running out of time. Not in the way people usually mean when they say that. It's worse. Because the time isn't disappearing into tragedy or crisis. It's vanishing into nothing, into scrolling, into pointless arguments, into hours you can't account for. You look back at last week and struggle to name a single thing that mattered. That's the real theft. Not dramatic loss, but quiet erosion. And the Stoics saw this coming 2,000 years ago. They didn't write about time management tips or productivity hacks. They wrote about something deeper. The brutal truth that most people sleepwalk through their existence, mistaking motion for progress, busyness for purpose. Marcus Aurelius ruled an empire, yet he obsessed over one question. Am I using this day, this hour, this moment in a way that reflects who I want to be? That's not philosophy, that's survival, because without that question you drift. And drifting feels fine until you wake up years later wondering where it all went. There are 7 principles buried in Stoic teaching that cut through the noise. Not gentle suggestions, laws, the kind that expose how much of your life you've been giving away without realizing it. And once you see them clearly, you can't unsee them. You start noticing the leaks, the places where your attention bleeds out, the moments you trade for absolutely nothing in return. This isn't about doing more. It's about reclaiming what's already yours. The first law hits hardest because it forces you to admit something uncomfortable. You're treating your time like it's infinite. You say yes to things that drain you because there's always tomorrow. You tolerate interruptions, distractions, people who take without asking because you assume you'll make up for it later. But later is a lie. The Stoics called this the greatest illusion. We act as if we're rich in time when we're actually bankrupt. Seneca wrote that people are protective of their property but reckless with their hours. They'll fight over a few dollars but hand over entire afternoons to anyone who asks. That's not generosity, that's not being easygoing, it's just not paying attention. Think about yesterday. How many minutes did you spend on something you genuinely valued? Now count how many you spent reacting, checking notifications, watching videos you won't remember, listening to someone complain about the same problem for the 3rd time this week. You wouldn't let someone walk into your home and steal your furniture, but you let the world walk in and steal something far more valuable, and the worst part, you help them do it. The second law is about ownership, not of things, but of your attention, because that's the real currency. Where your focus goes, your energy follows, and most people have outsourced their focus entirely. They let algorithms decide what they think about. They let other people's urgency dictate their schedule. They operate in a constant state of reaction, bouncing from one demand to the next, never once asking if any of it actually matters. The Stoics were obsessed with this distinction. What's in your control versus what isn't. And your attention? That's the one thing that's entirely yours. Until you give it away. Here's what that looks like in practice. You sit down to work on something important. 5 minutes in, your phone buzzes, you check it. Just a quick glance. Except it's never quick. One notification leads to another. You open an app, scroll for a bit, suddenly 20 minutes are gone. You return to the task, but now your focus is fractured. You're not really there. You're half present, half distracted, and the work suffers. Not because you lack ability, but because you keep handing your attention to anything that asks for it. That's not an accident. That's a choice you're making dozens of times a day without realizing it. The third law might be the most uncomfortable. You're mistaking activity for accomplishment. You're busy, sure, your calendar is full. Your to-do list is endless. But at the end of the day, what actually moved forward? What did you build, create, or resolve? Epictetus said people confuse the path with the destination. They mistake walking in circles for making progress. And that's most of what modern life has become. Endless motion that goes nowhere. Meetings about meetings. Plans to make plans. Preparation that never leads to action. The trap is that being busy feels productive. It gives you permission to collapse at the end of the day and say you earned it. But busy doesn't mean effective. You can spend 10 hours doing things that don't matter and call it a hard day's work. Meanwhile, someone else spends 2 focused hours on what actually counts and laps you. The difference isn't talent, it's clarity. They know what matters. You're still figuring it out while trying to do everything at once. And this is where it gets dangerous. Because once you see these patterns, you can't pretend they're not there. You start noticing how much time you've been wasting. Not on rest, not on things you love, but on obligations you never questioned. On habits you never chose. On people who drain you and give nothing back. The Stoics didn't teach avoidance. They taught ruthless honesty. Look at your life and ask what's actually worth your time. Then eliminate everything else. Not someday. Now. Because the fourth law is coming and it's going to make you rethink everything you thought you knew about control. Word count. 980. The fourth law is simple but devastating. You think you're making decisions, but you're not. You're following scripts written by someone else. Scripts you never agreed to. Scripts you don't even realize are running. Every time you say yes when you mean no, that's a script. Every time you apologize for taking up space, that's a script. Every time you dim yourself to make someone else comfortable, you're reading lines someone handed you years ago. And you've been performing them so long you forgot they weren't your words. Most people live entire lives this way. They inherit beliefs from parents, expectations from society, fears from their peers. Then they spend decades defending choices they never consciously made. They work jobs they hate because that's what responsible people do. They stay in relationships that drain them because leaving would disappoint someone. They avoid risks because someone once told them safety matters more than growth. None of it questioned, none of it examined. Just accepted as truth and repeated until it becomes identity. The Stoics called this living unconsciously, moving through life asleep. And the tragedy isn't that it happens, it's that most people never wake up. They reach the end still wondering why nothing ever felt quite right, why success felt hollow, why approval never satisfied. It's because they were chasing someone else's definition of those things, living someone else's life while calling it their own. Breaking this pattern requires something most people avoid: confrontation, not with others, with yourself. You have to sit down and ask uncomfortable questions. Why do I believe this? Who told me it was true? What would I choose if no one was watching? What do I actually want versus what I think I'm supposed to want? Those questions have answers you won't like, because they'll expose all the places you've been pretending, all the ways you've contorted yourself to fit into spaces that were never meant for you. Here's what makes this so hard. The scripts don't feel like scripts, they feel like you. You've worn them so long they've become indistinguishable from your personality. That voice telling you to play it safe, you think that's wisdom? That instinct to people please, you think that's kindness? That need to stay busy, you think that's ambition? But strip away the justifications and you'll find something else underneath. Fear. Fear of being seen as selfish. Fear of disappointing people. Fear of sitting still long enough to realize you're not happy. The scripts exist to protect you from that discomfort. And they work until they don't. Eventually the gap becomes too wide. The distance between who you are and who you're pretending to be starts creating friction. You feel it in the quiet moments, when you're alone and the performance stops, when you catch yourself mid-sentence saying something you don't believe, when you realize you can't remember the last time you did something purely because you wanted to. That friction is your soul trying to get your attention. And you can ignore it. Most do. They turn up the noise, add more distractions, double down on the scripts. But it doesn't go away, it just gets louder. Marcus Aurelius wrote about this constantly. He had every reason to keep performing. Emperor of Rome, unlimited power, everyone watching. But he knew the performance was killing him. So he wrote reminders to himself. Stop living for the crowd. Stop seeking approval. Stop pretending. These weren't motivational quotes, they were survival instructions. Because he understood that the moment you lose yourself to the expectations of others, you lose everything that makes life worth living. The fifth law cuts even deeper. You're avoiding the one thing that could actually change your life. Not because it's impossible, because it's uncomfortable. You know what it is. That conversation you need to have. That boundary you need to set. That project you keep putting off. That relationship you need to end. That risk you're too afraid to take. It sits there in the back of your mind, always present, always avoided. And every day you don't address it, it grows heavier. Seneca said we suffer more in imagination than in reality. And nowhere is that more true than with the things we avoid. You build them up in your head. You catastrophize the outcome. You convince yourself the discomfort will be unbearable. So you wait. You tell yourself you'll do it when you're ready, when the timing is better, when you have more information. But that day never comes. Because readiness isn't something you find. It's something you create by moving forward despite not feeling ready. What's fascinating is how much energy avoidance consumes. You don't realize it because it's invisible. But every time you think about the thing and then push it away, that's energy spent. Every time you make an excuse, justify the delay, or distract yourself from the discomfort, you're bleeding focus. By the end of the day, you're exhausted, not from doing hard things, but from avoiding them. The mental gymnastics required to keep something at bay while simultaneously knowing it needs to be addressed. That's what drains you. And here's the cruel part. The thing you're avoiding, it's probably not as bad as you think. Most of the time, the anticipation is worse than the reality. You finally have the conversation and it's difficult but survivable. You set the boundary and the world doesn't end. You take the risk, and even if it doesn't work out, you're still standing. The monster you built in your mind turns out to be manageable in real life. But you'll never know that until you stop running. Word count: 980. The Stoics had a practice for this. They called it memento mori. Remember, you will die. Not to be morbid, but to wake you up. Because when you truly accept that your time is limited, avoidance becomes obscene. Every day you delay is a day you'll never get back. Every moment spent circling the thing instead of facing it is a moment stolen from the life you could be living. Death doesn't care about your excuses. It doesn't wait for you to feel ready. It just comes. And when it does, you don't get to negotiate for more time to finally do the thing you kept putting off. So the question becomes unbearably simple. If you knew you had 6 months left, would you still be avoiding this? Would you still be waiting for the perfect moment? Or would you finally realize that the discomfort of facing it is nothing compared to the regret of never trying? That clarity is available to you right now. You don't need a diagnosis or a deadline. You just need to stop pretending you have infinite time. Epictetus taught that we don't control outcomes, but we control our actions. And avoidance is a choice. Every single time, you're choosing temporary comfort over long-term peace. You're choosing the familiar prison over the uncertain freedom. And the longer you make that choice, the smaller your world becomes, because avoidance doesn't just affect one area, it spreads. You avoid one difficult thing, and suddenly you're avoiding everything that requires courage. Your capacity for discomfort atrophies. You become someone who runs at the first sign of friction, and that's no way to live. Here's what changes everything. Action creates clarity, not the other way around. You think you need to figure it all out before you move, but movement is what brings the answers. You take the first step and suddenly the path reveals itself. You have the hard conversation and realize what needs to happen next. You set the boundary and discover who actually respects you. You make the change and find out you're more capable than you believed. But none of that happens while you're standing still. The sixth law might be the hardest to accept. You're not protecting yourself by staying small. You're suffocating. There's this idea that if you don't try, you can't fail. If you don't speak up, you can't be rejected. If you don't reach for more, you can't be disappointed, so you shrink. You play it safe. You convince yourself that staying small is wisdom when really it's just fear wearing a disguise. But here's what that strategy costs you. Every time you make yourself smaller to avoid discomfort, you lose a piece of your soul. You teach yourself that you're not worth taking up space, that your voice doesn't matter, that your dreams are negotiable. And over time, you forget what it feels like to stand at your full height. You become so accustomed to the cramped version of yourself that expansion feels dangerous. Carl Jung wrote about this. He said the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are, not who you were told to be, not the compressed version that fits into everyone else's expectations, the full, unedited, unapologetic version. But that version can't emerge if you're constantly making yourself smaller. It requires space. It requires permission you give yourself, not permission you wait to receive from others. Think about the people you admire most, The ones who've actually done something meaningful. They didn't get there by playing small. They took up space. They risked being seen. They made bold moves that could have failed spectacularly. And some of those moves did fail. But they kept going because they understood something crucial. The pain of staying small eventually exceeds the fear of being seen. You feel it, don't you? That tightness in your chest when you hold back. That voice that whispers you're capable of more. That restlessness that won't let you settle into comfort. That's not anxiety, that's your potential banging on the walls of the box you've built around it. And the longer you ignore it, the louder it gets. Until one day you realize you've spent years protecting yourself from a life you were meant to live. Seneca said it clearly. We're not given a short life, we make it short. And we make it short by wasting it on things that don't matter while avoiding the things that do. By staying small when we could expand. By choosing safety when we could choose growth. By protecting an identity that's too small to hold who we're becoming. The most dangerous lie you tell yourself is that there's time. Time to finally speak up. Time to take the risk. Time to stop performing and start being. But time isn't neutral. Every day you wait, the gap between who you are and who you could be widens. The habits of smallness become more ingrained. The courage required to break out grows steeper. Until one day you look back and realize you spent your entire life preparing to live instead of actually living. Here's the shift that changes everything. You don't need to know how it will turn out. You don't need guarantees. You don't need to feel ready. You just need to decide that staying small is no longer an option. That you'd rather fail at being yourself than succeed at being someone else's version of you. That you'd rather face temporary discomfort than permanent regret. The seventh law brings it all together. Your life won't change until you do. Not your circumstances, you. Because you can change jobs, cities, relationships, but if you bring the same patterns with you, nothing fundamentally shifts. The external changes, but the internal stays the same. And eventually you recreate the exact situation you were trying to escape. Real transformation starts with something uncomfortable. Admitting you've been complicit in your own stagnation. Not blaming the world, your past, or the people who didn't believe in you. Just looking at the mirror and acknowledging that the person staring back has been playing a role they never auditioned for. That's hard. It's easier to point outward. To say the system is broken, opportunities are scarce, others had advantages you didn't. And maybe that's all true. But it doesn't change the fact that you still have a choice in how you respond. You can use those reasons as excuses or as fuel. One keeps you stuck, the other sets you free. The Stoics understood this deeply. Epictetus was born a slave, literally owned by another human being, yet he became one of the most influential philosophers in history. Not because his circumstances were fair, not because someone handed him opportunity, but because he refused to let external conditions dictate his internal state. He realized that while he couldn't control his chains, he could control his mind. And that made him freer than most people who've never worn shackles. That's the paradox. Real freedom isn't about circumstances, it's about ownership. When you take full responsibility for your life, not just the good parts, but the messy, uncomfortable, embarrassing parts, you reclaim your power. Because if you're responsible, that means you can change it. But if you're a victim, you're stuck waiting for the world to save you, and the world doesn't save anyone. It just keeps moving. Most people never make this shift. They spend decades blaming, justifying, explaining why things are the way they are. And they're not wrong. Their reasons are valid, but validity doesn't equal transformation. You can be right about why you're stuck and still remain stuck. Or you can be honest about your role in it and start moving. The second path is lonelier, because when you stop blaming, you lose the comfort of shared grievances. You can't sit around complaining anymore. You have to act, and action exposes you. It reveals whether you're serious or just talking, whether you're committed or just curious, whether you're willing to endure the discomfort of change, or if you'd rather stay wrapped in the familiarity of struggle. Here's where it gets interesting. The moment you stop making excuses, something shifts in how others perceive you. Not everyone will like it. Some people are invested in your smallness. They need you to stay where you are because your growth threatens their comfort. If you change, it means they could too. And they're not ready to face that, so they'll resist, subtly at first. Little comments, jokes that sting, questions that undermine. Then more directly, if you don't back down, they'll tell you you're changing, that you're not the same. And they'll say it like it's a criticism, but it's not. It's confirmation. You're supposed to change. That's the point. You're not here to stay the same person forever. You're here to evolve, to outgrow versions of yourself that no longer serve you, to shed identities you adopted to survive and step into ones that let you thrive. And if people can't handle that, it says more about them than it does about you. Marcus Aurelius wrote that the impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. In other words, resistance isn't a sign you're on the wrong path. It's confirmation you're on the right one. Because anything worth doing will be resisted. By others, by circumstances, and most fiercely by yourself. Your own mind will throw up every excuse, every doubt, every reason to quit, not because you're weak, but because change is threatening to the part of you that craves safety. And that part will fight to keep you small. So how do you override it? You don't. You can't eliminate fear or doubt. They're hardwired into your survival system. But you can choose to act in spite of them. You can feel the fear and move forward anyway. Not because you're fearless, but because you've decided that growth matters more than comfort. That becoming who you're meant to be is worth more than staying safe. And every time you make that choice, you prove to yourself that you're capable of more than you thought. That's how confidence builds. Not through affirmations or positive thinking, but through evidence. Through doing the thing you didn't think you could do and surviving it. Through taking the risk and discovering you're stronger than the worst-case scenario. Through facing rejection and realizing it didn't kill you. Each time you do this, the next risk feels slightly less terrifying. Not because risks become safe, but because you become braver. You build a track record of resilience. And that track record becomes the foundation of unshakable self-trust. The kind that doesn't need external validation because it's rooted in internal proof. You know what you're capable of because you've tested it repeatedly, in different contexts, under different pressures. And you've seen yourself rise. That's the difference between people who talk about change and people who embody it. The ones who embody it have scars. They've failed publicly. They've been misunderstood. They've had to rebuild after things fell apart. But they kept going, not because they're special, but because they refused to let failure become their identity. They treated it as feedback, as data, as information about what to adjust, not evidence of who they are. Seneca said the whole future lies in uncertainty. Live immediately, and that's the urgency underneath all of this. You don't have forever to figure it out, to wait until you're ready, to gather more evidence or build more confidence. You have now, this moment. And what you do with it determines everything that follows. Not in some dramatic all-or-nothing way, but in the quiet accumulation of choices that either move you forward or keep you circling. The eighth law makes it clear. You don't grow by waiting for permission. You grow by deciding that who you've been is no longer who you're becoming, and then proving it through action. One decision at a time, one uncomfortable conversation, one boundary set, one old pattern broken. This is how transformation happens. Not in a single moment of clarity, but in 1,000 small moments where you choose differently than before. Most people never start because they're waiting for certainty. They want to know it'll work before they try. But that's not how life operates. Certainty comes after the leap, not before it. You build the bridge as you walk across it. You discover your strength in the middle of the storm, not before it arrives. And the beautiful part? Every time you survive what you thought would destroy you, you expand. Your capacity grows. What once felt impossible becomes your new baseline. Think about the last time you were genuinely afraid of something and did it anyway. Maybe it was speaking up in a room full of people who intimidated you. Maybe it was ending a relationship you knew wasn't right. Maybe it was starting something new when everyone around you said it was too risky. In that moment, right before you acted, you probably felt sick. Your body screamed at you to retreat, your mind flooded with reasons to wait, to reconsider, to stay safe. But you moved forward anyway. And what happened? You survived. More than that, you learned something about yourself that no amount of thinking could have taught you. You learned that you could do hard things, that discomfort wasn't death, that the voice in your head predicting disaster wasn't always accurate. And that realization, that's power, real power. The kind that can't be given or taken away because it's earned through lived experience. Now here's what most people miss. They treat that moment like an isolated event. They survive the fear, feel relief, and then go right back to playing it safe. But the Stoics understood something deeper. They knew that courage isn't a one-time act, it's a practice, a discipline, something you have to choose again and again, especially when it would be easier not to. Because the moment you stop challenging yourself, you start shrinking, not dramatically, just gradually, quietly. Until one day you look around and realize you've built a life that feels too small for who you actually are. That's the trap of comfort. It doesn't announce itself as a trap. It feels like relief, like finally getting a break, like deserved rest after a hard climb. And rest is necessary. But there's a difference between rest and retreat, between pausing to recover and settling into stagnation. Rest restores you so you can keep moving. Retreat convinces you that where you are is as far as you should go. And once you accept that lie, you stop growing. You stop evolving. You become a monument to who you used to be instead of a living example of who you're becoming. Aristotle believed that we are what we repeatedly do. Excellence, then, is not an act but a habit, and he was right. Your life is not shaped by the big decisions you make once in a while. It's shaped by the small decisions you make every single day. The choice to wake up when the alarm goes off instead of hitting snooze. The choice to honor your word even when no one's watching. The choice to sit with discomfort instead of numbing it with distractions. These aren't glamorous choices. They don't make for inspiring stories, but they're the ones that actually matter. Because here's the truth nobody wants to hear. Transformation isn't a destination. It's not something you achieve and then get to coast on forever. It's a direction. A commitment to keep moving toward a better version of yourself even when the progress feels invisible. Even when you're tired. Even when the world isn't cheering. Especially then. Because that's when it counts most. When no one's looking and you still choose to show up. When there's no applause and you still do the work. When you could easily justify quitting and you keep going anyway. That's where character is forged. Not in the highlight moments, but in the grind. In the repetition. In the daily choice to be better than yesterday, even when yesterday was already hard. And if you can do that, if you can commit to that process without needing constant validation or immediate results, you become unstoppable. Not because you're invincible, but because you've learned how to keep moving regardless of conditions. You've built something internal that doesn't depend on external circumstances lining up perfectly. So what does this mean for you right now? It means you don't need to have it all figured out. You don't need to know exactly how it's going to work. You just need to take the next step, the one right in front of you, the one you've been avoiding because it feels too hard or too uncertain. Take that step, see what happens, and then take the next one. Not because you're guaranteed success, but because staying still guarantees nothing changes. And you didn't come this far to stay the same. You came to grow, to evolve, to become someone you can respect when you're alone with your thoughts. That version of you is already here, waiting. Not in the future, but in every choice you make today. So choose wisely, choose bravely, and keep moving forward. You've spent enough time thinking about this. Enough time planning, preparing, waiting for the moment when everything aligns perfectly. That moment isn't coming. It never does. The only moment you have is this one. And what you do with it right now matters more than every intention you've ever had. The 7 laws aren't theories to admire. They're mirrors forcing you to see how much of your life you've been giving away. To distractions that don't serve you, to people who don't value you, to versions of yourself you've outgrown but keep performing out of habit. You know what needs to change. You've known for a while. The question isn't what, it's when. And the answer is now. Not because it's easy, because waiting makes it harder. Every day you delay, the gap between who you are and who you could be grows wider. The patterns deepen. The excuses become more convincing. Until one day you look back and realize you spent your entire life rehearsing instead of living. The Stoics didn't offer comfort. They offered truth. Your time is finite. Your attention is valuable. Your life is yours to shape. But only if you stop handing the chisel to everyone else. Only if you finally decide that becoming who you're meant to be matters more than staying comfortable. So stop waiting. Start moving. The life you want is on the other side of the discomfort you keep avoiding.